city staff. We have Landon Hawes, our zoning administrator, Ty Gingrich, who's our development services engineer, David Haug, who will be looking at the planning of this. I'm Ken DeKaiser, development services manager. We also have with us today Dustin Kern, who's a developer, and Judge Schnorr Bonifazi, who is his engineer. I'd like to start out by handing this over to Dustin Kern, who can explain the project in a little more detail. What we have with us is a preliminary plat and a proposed rezoning. So take it away, Dustin.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ken. And just want to say thank you to all the staff on this. I know it's been kind of an interesting time, notwithstanding COVID, but then we kind of got the double kick with the storm a couple weeks ago, and appreciate everything you've done to kind of keep this moving to the extent we can. Obviously, there's a lot on everyone's plate, so appreciate that. Again, my name is Dustin Kern, and I'm a local residential land developer in the Cedar Rapids, Marion area. And just a little bit of history, I've developed kind of for the past 20 plus years. I spent the first 10 or so years in the Minneapolis-St. Paul market working for the large home builder developer up there, and really the past 10 plus minus years, actually 12, 13 years in the Cedar Rapids area, developing, basically only single family residential projects. I'm not a home builder, I'm just a developer. So I sell lots mainly to small custom home builders, set up my own architectural review, covenants, approve all the home plans, etc. So kind of established a good reputation in the marketplace in the local area, and have good reputation with builders and neighborhood and neighbors and staff. So I'm really excited about this Wexford West edition, which is really kind of the history. I started developing in this general area back in 2010 or 11. Started with the Rapids Ridge Estates 3rd edition, which is just east of here. Took over the last phase of that project, had a little bit of success with that, and in 2012 and 13 was able to acquire 3 separate parcels of land, which has now become Wexford Heights. And Wexford Heights, which is just to the top of this plan that's on the screen, but directly east, is a single family subdivision that consists of 83 total single family lots. That project is nearing completion. I'd say out of the 83 lots, there's probably, plus minus 65 to 70 homes that have been constructed out there. So it was time to look for an additional opportunity in the area. This land has been available. I'm working with the property owner on this to basically mirror what has been done in Wexford Heights, and we're real excited about it. This one is going to be, at least in my mind, significantly less complicated than the Wexford Heights edition. Wexford Heights incorporated basically a regional lift station that really, we entertained an arrangement with the city over the span of probably a year or two of creating a new policy for lift stations. The lift station is constructed, if you can follow my mouse, kind of in this general area, and that lift station does serve Wexford Heights. It also will serve this Wexford West edition. It also serves the surrounding area. So we're excited that that got completed as part of this. Part of Wexford Heights, I should say, back in 2014, I believe that was constructed. And also there's some regional stormwater detention that will also be incorporated as part of the Wexford West edition up here in we'll call it the northeast corner of Wexford West. What we will be doing, which has always been planned, is expand the existing detention basin that accommodates Wexford Heights, and that will be expanded to the west to accommodate the majority of the stormwater that will come off of Wexford West. So a lot of kind of collaboration and regional, I guess, efforts as we look at the engineering side of this. Really just to kind of get to the meat and potatoes of this project, it's approximately 31 acres total, the property. And out of the 31 acres, the majority of it, plus minus 26 acres, which is the northerly, call it, 80% of the property, is single family lots. And those single family lots are quite similar in size, scope, scale nature to Wexford Heights. I actually plan to mirror the same covenants for the architectural styles. Really a nice kind of, I call certainly an upper end single family neighborhood for the northeast side of Cedar Rapids. Actually, the average lot size for the single family component of Wexford Heights is 0.47 acres. So the average lot size almost a half an acre, which is actually, I think, a little bit larger than Wexford Heights. Some of these lots are just based upon the road layout and the configuration had to get a little deeper, which obviously creates a little bit more square footage. There are 41 total single family lots incorporated into Wexford West. My plan is to phase this into 2 different phases. I'm still looking at how this project can be phased as far as the engineering, the sanitary sewer, and tying things together with what's existing in Wexford Heights. I should know more about the phasing, as we proceed with the plan of improvements with the engineering. But I think we have some options to look at for that. It's really a pretty basic layout. We've tried to accommodate the city of Cedar Rapids and some of their traffic components and engineering components as far as sight lines and sight distances, and we've certainly accommodated the policies for that. We certainly feel we've done a good job with that, and again, just trying to mirror to the extent we can what's been successful in this area. There seems to be a market for kind of the upper end single family scale. This really accommodates the small custom home builder, the builders who probably build anywhere from 4 to 8 homes a year. And without projects like these, those guys and gals, they go out of business. So I'm happy to be a producer for lots for them. So really that's kind of the single family component of this project. Down on the south side, as you can see, if you follow my mouse, we've set aside 6 acres for some sort of medium density, higher density senior housing component. And really that's, I don't know exactly what that will look like as of today. I don't build those types of buildings, but I know obviously with the aging population, there's a marketplace. Hopefully it's not too absorbed because you see senior housing buildings going up a lot, but people are obviously getting older, and with the location of this project, I think there's an opportunity to do a really nice senior housing project down on that lot. It's certainly something that we don't have anyone committed for yet. We wanted to get the single family portion going a little further along before we can do anything. But as plans progress on that, obviously we need to come back to city staff and go through the approval process again for that particular project. So really that's about all I have on that 6 acre component down there. I'm trying to think, I know one thing that I've talked to a couple of neighbors about with this project, just because I'm really good friends with a lot of the people who live in Wexford Heights, is kind of the traffic flow and getting people in and out of this project. And, all these streets that are proposed as part of this project are going to be public streets, which Rapids Ridge Road, which ties into it, Sandon Road, Prairie Grass Lane, Casey Lane to the south, those are all public streets. I've talked to some of the neighbors about some of their concerns with traffic and construction traffic, and I'll certainly try to do the best I can to, offset some of the construction traffic for a project like this. One thing that I think I can do, and I've talked to city staff about this, is while I'm in control of the development, meaning I hire the heavy equipment contractors who do the mass grading, they do the big deliveries with the sanitary sewer pipes, the storm sewer pipes, the water main pipes, the backhoes, kind of the bigger scale, larger equipment. As long as weather allows, I should be able to get them to enter the site from the south off of Blair's Ferry Road. There's an existing old farm access. I personally don't think it's the safest access because it's kind of on a curve, and I think the speed limit out there is 50 or maybe 55. but I can do my best to control, the construction folks on the heavy equipment side, in particular the paving. That's really when you have just nonstop concrete trucks coming in. And I think we can accommodate them kind of off-road, if you will, from the south so that they don't continually come in on Rapids Ridge Road or Sandon Road or Prairie Grass Lane through Casey Lane. Like anything, just, my statement to city staff and the residents is there's no guarantees because I can only control so much. There's always one or two employees who haven't been told something, or they plug something in their GPS and they just kind of go whichever the GPS tells them, which, then they would be going through the existing neighborhood, which again, they have every right to do that because it's a public street. But I think I can control some of that. And I know the residents have expressed a little concern with that. So should be able to offset that. Trying to think. Other than that, it's like I said, I'm trying to have a fairly straightforward project. It's with all the public streets, the detention basin that will be at the end of the day publicly owned and maintained. There aren't any other additional common areas. It's just one of those properties that the layout, the dimensions, it just it's really meant to accommodate some really nice single family lots. I've been asked if there's going to be a pond similar to Wexford Heights. Obviously, with the plan that's in front of you, there's not. There's just spatial dimensions that I'm working with that don't allow that. Otherwise, I think that's kind of my presentation. Trying not to be too fancy or anything here, Ken. So if you, I'll send it back to you guys. If you have some questions, we can take them and kind of go from there.
Okay, well, thank you, Dustin. Well, for the people who may be viewing this online, we'd just like to note that the way this site is oriented, you can see Blair's Ferry Road is on the right side of the screen, at least it's my right, and that is the south edge of the property. So going from right to left, that's going from south to north, just to get everybody oriented. Also, I would note that on the east side of this property, we have a portion of Wexford Heights subdivision, city subdivision. We also have a county subdivision that's connected to Blair's Ferry Road. And then to the west of this proposed property, we have currently undeveloped land. So right now we have, appears to be 41 residential lots, single family. Dave, can you confirm what the proposed zoning districts are going to be for both the single family and then the medium density properties?
Yeah, the single family lots are going to be SRL1, which is a large lot single family zoning district. The southerly lot would be an SRMF, which is a multi-family district, which, as we heard, is hopefully going to be a assisted living facility.
Yes, they could fit assisted living or townhomes or any number of compatible uses. We as a city do tend to encourage a little denser growth along the major streets rather than having too many of the single family homes up against a higher speed street. So this is a preliminary plat. There are two different processes that are going to be going to City Planning Commission on September 10th. This plat, as well as the rezoning and future land use map amendments. So there's going to be three different items for the City Planning Commission consideration. And then upon those recommendations, the rezoning and the future land use map will move to the City Council. That date will be determined, and we will let everybody know accordingly what that date is. There were some concerns about the site that were given to us, as well as Dustin Kern, through the annexation process. I believe, Dustin, you addressed the traffic situation. We're going to try to encourage heavy equipment, as well as the actual subdivision infrastructure and construction, to connect to the site via Blair's Ferry Road to keep as much of that traffic off of Rapids Ridge Road as possible. However, when the site is at least developed with the streets and the sewers, when the individual home builders come in to build lots, they may very well use Rapids Ridge Road. and that's going to be something a little harder to control. There were some other things that had came up during the initial development of the project. One was brought up in annexation. There was some concerns about the boundaries of the site. Dustin, can you explain any of that to us?
Yeah, and I may have to hand this over to Jed because they did the topo work and the boundary work. There was some, when Wexford Heights was platted, there was some discrepancies and I'll call them disagreements, if you will, with some of the residents on Wayside Circle as far as the property line and the fence line. And we had to have some discussions about that. And we really needed to look at kind of the east property line of this Wexford West edition. And I believe in this particular case, the fence line basically lines up with the property line. So there shouldn't be any discrepancies on this east side. But Jed, is that what we found when we did the topo and survey work?
When we did the topo, I think it was Lot 1 Blair Ridge Edition, their fence is not on your property. It's kind of 6 feet away from the property line. So there's really no disagreement there. And I don't believe you're not going to try to take up to the fence or anything. It's just the property line is just going to be to the west of the Lot 1 fence.
Okay. Yep. So
Is that clear?
it kind of was the opposite case with Wexford Heights, Ken. So shouldn't be an issue there.
Okay. And then another thing that often comes up with any subdivision construction is stormwater management concerns. We have worked with several residents in Wexford Heights regarding backyard flow of water and during some heavy storm events, and just wondering if you have at least a preliminary idea of the stormwater management plan on this subdivision, and if there are some risks or things that you can think of that could be potentially nuisance drainage conditions or other issues that could result in complaints. So are there any risks that you can see here? And yeah, what are your initial thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, stormwater and drainage seems to be always an issue with projects. And what I find interesting is sometimes I get a call from a homeowner after a heavy rain who has a wet backyard within a drainage easement. And as we're meeting, looking at the issue, their irrigation pops on. So I think there's some education that, I can try to help with builders and homeowners to kind of offset some of this. But as far as the initial site layout and engineering, I feel I haven't had a site for a few years that sits up pretty darn high. I'm pretty excited about that. Wexford Heights, in all reality, is a low site. So you do have more drainage running through it. But with Wexford, I like the topography of it and the elevations. There's always areas, however, though, in rear yards, for example, in this area here where I need my telescope to see how large of a drainage easement, where we've incorporated, a 20-foot drainage easement, so a shared easement on 10 foot of both lots. That certainly could be wet at certain times as the water flows from west to east, because basically everything does flow towards the detention basin. I always look at some of these areas during the initial development and try to accommodate those, build them to grade. And I really, what it comes down to, a lot of these, it's kind of the positives and the negatives of having a subdivision where you have multiple home builders. The positive is you have a project at the end of the day that all the homes don't look the same and you have a lot of quality home builders. The downside is sometimes you have home builders and their respective homeowners who have certain, I guess, desires for how every square foot of their yard should look. And what I mean there is these rear yard drainage easements, and we aren't at the design stage yet for those, but I'm assuming we're going to have basically a shallow swale that goes through there, to run the water from east to west into a storm intake that'll run through the street and then into the basin. It's really critical that when the individual builders and homeowners final grade their home, that they don't fill those in and they don't put obstructions there, whether it be fences or trees. And all things considered, I think, considering Wexford Heights and 83 lots, granted, they're not all built, we've been able to offset some issues, and we've identified, I think, between myself and city staff that some of these issues, I should say most of them, are brought upon homeowners doing things they shouldn't be doing. So in this case, I guess in summary, there's potentially always going to be some rear yard drainage issues where people have wet yards, but we live in interesting times. We're getting all these rains, and I always tell people that if you have a rear yard drainage easement and it's somewhat wet after a heavy rain, that's a good thing, because it's keeping it where it's supposed to be. It's keeping it out of your house, out of your basement. And if you give it a little bit of time, a couple of days, it usually dries out. So I guess that's my long answer to your question, Ken. It's an issue that we just take on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, Dustin, appreciate that. Let's go out to the other city staff here and see if we have any other comments from Ty or Landon or Dave. Any questions or comments from you guys?
Nothing for me. Seems fairly clear.
Okay.
Just a quick one. When Lot 42 develops, would Lot A become a public street, or is it too early to know?
Yeah, I guess at this point, it's a little early to know. We've set aside Lot A to provide a link from point A to point B. And until, the nice part about Lot A is it is, unless I'm mistaken, 60 foot in width, which could accommodate a city right of way, or, it could accommodate, a simple driveway or some sort of private street to provide access. One thing I want to do at some point, and it's shown here, I doubt it'll look like this, is provide a pedestrian connection, from Blair's Ferry through that senior housing component, through the single family component. So that's the other purpose for Lot A. And if that ultimately is converted to public right of way, that could still accommodate that as well. So we're kind of keeping that option open until we get a little further along with that Lot 42.
Okay. I do see at least have a conceptual sidewalk here along Lot A over to Blair's Ferry Road. And the only thing we would caution on Lot A is that if we plat it that way, we'll just need to make sure that there aren't any utilities that build in Lot A, because they tend to fill up pretty fast and you don't have your access there. So we'll just plan for that in the future.
Fair enough.
Okay. I can't think of anything else. I mean, it does certainly appear both the types of zoning here seem to fit within our comprehensive plan adequately and generally match the character of the area as well as the use. So I guess as far as staff, we wouldn't have any concern there. The next step is once we get done, Dave, make sure you stop recording when we're finished here. We'll get this processed, we'll get this posted online, as well as have a courtesy mailer sent out to the adjacent residents, inviting them to the meeting coming up for City Planning Commission, and also providing a link to this presentation so that they at least have some background on this before they attend, and again, provide any contact information so they can ask questions of us or the developer in the meantime. So with that, were there any? Go ahead.
Sorry, Ken. I assume you're going to open it up one last time. I apologize.
Yep, sure.
I think one thing that just popped into my mind, and I'd rely maybe upon you and your staff to clarify this, just relating back to kind of construction traffic and as far as the ordinance related to the number of single family lots that can be developed and or constructed from an adjacent intersection, because I know we had talked about this in the past, and this intersection, which is not on this plan, which is off Rapids Ridge Road when it ties into Michael. So that's kind of the closest intersection as far as starting a new development. And if I counted correctly, there's 16 single family lots in Wexford Heights from that point. And if you add the 41, obviously that's 57. So I thought there was a maximum number of lots that could not be exceeded from that intersection point. Can you clarify that?
There's 100 lot limits. That is the fire code.
Okay.
The way this whole overall neighborhood is set up from that intersection you mentioned, I believe there are at least a couple of other accesses out to Michael Drive or Milburn, is it?
Yep, Milburn.
So Milburn. So right now you have under 100, and then when further development occurs to the west, we'll just need to make sure that the number of residential lots don't exceed 100, or else we'll for sure need to get some kind of access off of Blair's Ferry Road, which should happen anyway. We think it should happen in the future, at least as Blair's Ferry swings to the north and gets out of the curve and becomes a straight section again. We ultimately would like to see some connectivity from that point over to this subdivision, but that will of course be handled at some other point, maybe even not by you. And we'll just have to see who develops that.
Sure. Yep. I think it's good for the public, and if members of the planning commission, so basically there's 57 lots and the maximum is 100. So we're well under that fire code, just for clarification.
Okay.
That's all I had, guys. Jed, did you have anything else to add? You're hiding behind your phone down there.
Nope, you summarized everything very nicely.
Oh, okay.
I just
All right.
had, I just had one general question about like lots 16 and 27 where those temporary turnarounds are located.
Yeah.
Would the plan be to build on those prior, well, I guess while that temporary turnaround's still there?
Yeah, good question, Ty. 99% of the time, no.
Yeah.
My hope would be, and I just haven't had an opportunity to have a discussion with the property owner to the west. Ideally, you have a temporary turnaround that doesn't take, 2 single family lots or one. But I just haven't had an opportunity to make connection with them. Hopefully, as part of this process, that connection will be made, and maybe there's a discussion where I can move those temporary turnarounds off the property. But there's no guarantee with that. So with that being the case, I've done enough of these where you think you can build on something like that, but you can't. And just looking at them, 27, I guess, maybe there's a chance to stick a house on the front, but I don't think that's too marketable of a lot to have a temporary turnaround behind it either. So more than likely, the answer is no.
Okay.
All right. Anything else before we conclude? If not, I'd just like to thank everybody for their time, and let's just look forward to working with Dustin here and with the future project, and also excited to answer any questions from the public when we get those, and we'll go from there. We'll just our next step is, as I mentioned, City Planning Commission on September 10th. With that, I think we're finished here. Dave, you can go ahead and stop the recording when you're ready, and we'll talk to everybody later.
All right.